very much for inviting me as one of the speakers. I'm a Masumi ZAIKI, climatologist in the field of physical geography. Today, I'd like to talk about reconstruction of past climate. With the title, Reconstruction of Climate in Japan during the 19th century, based on old instrumental meteorological records. Information of the past climate is one of the keys to interpreting the present and the future climate. Imaging and digitization of old paper-based instrumental meteorological records must be carried out before these records are lost to decay. This kind of activity, called data rescue, is now taking place at many institutions all over the world. We have been working on data rescue of Japanese old meteorological data taken before the Japan Meteorological Agency Foundation. This enables us to understand climate characteristics at the end of the Little Ice Age. In my presentation, firstly, I would like to introduce instrumental meteorological records taken in Japan during the 19th century. I briefly talk about its location, contents, related historical backgrounds, and then I talk about how to correct and homogenize each data when we digitize the records. Secondly, I would like to report temperature time series in Japan since the 19th century, which was derived from rescued instrumental records and some climatological characteristics at the time. This map in the book, Climate History and the Modern World, show that the world network of systematic observation with meteorological instruments have started to expand from Western European countries. If you look at Japan here, it shows that beginning of instrumental observation have started sometime between 1850 to 1899, which means the beginning of Japan Meteorological Agency, JMA, in 1872. However, we have been searching Japanese instrumental meteorological data taken before the foundation of JMA as a part of international data rescue activities. This diagram shows availability of 19th century meteorological data in some places over Japan. In this figure, gray arrows represent observations by JMA. Black bars are indicating records which my colleagues, many historians, and I found so far. In the early 19th century, before opening of Japan during the Sakoku, observations were taken by Dutch scientists such as von Siebold, also by the chief of the trade factory in Dejima, Nagasaki, who had an only permission to come and stay in Japan to make trading at that time. After opening of Japan, after its 1850s, many foreigners such as American, French, German, British, and Russian were made observations at several main ports like Hakodate, Yokohama, Osaka, Kobe. These are the samples of meteorological records taken during Sakoku. Left picture is a handwritten record by von Siebold. This table contains sub-daily reports of atmospheric pressure, temperature, humidity, and notes about weather, including earthquakes in Edo in left page and Nagasaki in right page in 1825 September. right-hand picture is a daily temperature and pressure record by Japanese astronomers called Tenmon-gata, who were also known as Dutch scholars hired by Tokugawa government to produce calendars. And then these are the other samples of meteorological reports after Sakoku. In Kobe, British harbor masters. In Yokohama, French and American medical doctors. And in Hakodate, Russian doctors made observations. Basically, they sent their reports back to their own countries. And later, meteorological tables were published in yearbooks or academic journals by meteorological institutions. After Sakoku, not only foreigners, but Japanese also made observations, personally and officially. Left picture is personal and a family diary written by Otaka merchant family in Mito, Ibaraki. It seems that they personally got an instrument, thermometer, and took observation every morning. Then they analyzed relation between temperature and prices of cereal crops by themselves. Right picture is temperature readings at Hakodate, Hokkaido by Sendai Domain for security at Ezo. This slide shows the process of data rescue. After collecting paper-based old meteorological records, we move on to digitization, especially keying and unit decoding. For temperature, recorded units are Fahrenheit, Celsius, and Réaumur. And for pressure, units are English inch and French inch, which are quite difficult to distinguish. Then, in correction process, pressure readings are adjusted for temperature, sea level, and gravity according to its location. Then, in homogenization, to connect fragmental records which were taken at different locations and a different observation routine. So for the homogenization, we applied some physics and a statistical method. After that, extreme values, which may be caused by just human errors, are taken out from the dataset as quality control process. And this figure shows that temperature time series in Tokyo and Nagasaki. Tokyo in upper graph, and Nagasaki is a lower graph. Black lines are original values, and blues are corrected and homogenized values. In some periods, there are differences in values between before and after correction and homogenization process. Then finally, meteorological data set in the 19th century in Japan is ready for scientific use. Even after all the correction and homogenization processes, still these records are very fragmented in time and also in space. However, also important to have climatological images during the 19th century. So, to get rough but continuous climatological images in the 19th century in Japan, we aggregated fragmental records into one single time series, which is called Japan Temperature Series. We applied a method which is used for Central England Temperature Series, which are representative temperature records for the Midland regions of England from 1659 to the present. In this figure, black line is annual mean temperatures in Japan during the JMA period. On the other hand, red line is values derived from our findings, which nobody believed to exist before our project starts. From this time series, warm episode and big temperature variations around the 1850s are remarkable after a cold spell in 1840s here. Here in the left figure, if we look temperatures in each location, Tokyo, Yokohama, and the middle, some years in 1850s here show remarkably high temperatures, both in summer and the winter. Also, in the right figure, blue and the light blue lines indicate estimated temperatures in Tokyo based on weather descriptions in old diaries since the 18th century. This also shows warm spikes around the 1850s. So it was already known that cooler climate conditions have occurred around the 1830s and 1840s when Temple Great Famine happened. In this study, we found that climate has shifted to warm epoch in 1850s right after cold climate spell in 1830s and 1840s. To conclude my talk, finding of 19th century instrumental records in Japan brought a significant extension of the modern Japanese meteorological record backward in time. For its scientific use, data collection and homogenization were applied to the data. However, the 19th century data are still fragmented, so aggregated time series for temperature in Japan are produced, and it shows warm and drastic temperature variation around the 1850s. And we assume that this may be a signal for the end of the Little Ice Age. Thank you very much.